Hello and welcome to NTD News Today. Kevin Hogan here. Let's take a look at our top stories. Democrats and Republicans voicing support for Cuban protesters. What's Cuba's communist regime blaming the unrest on? And what do Cuban American leaders have to say? Texas Democratic lawmakers have fled the Lone Star State to block GOP election reform. We'll tell you why they're visiting Washington, D.C. on their walkout and what may happen to them when they return to Texas. Judicial Watch is suing the U.S. Postal Service for records about a program that reportedly monitors American social media posts and forwards that information to law enforcement agencies. German Chancellor Angela Merkel will meet with President Joe Biden later this week. Her visit comes amid heightened tensions over a range of disagreements, including a nearly completed gas pipeline to Russia. The Food and Drug Administration issues a new warning about the Johnson & Johnson CCP virus vaccine. This time, it's related to a rare autoimmune disorder. Americans on both sides of the aisle are voicing their support for the people of Cuba after protests over the weekend. President Biden says the U.S. stands with them as they assert their universal rights. NTD's Jessica Beatty has more.
South Florida's Cuban community gathered in Miami Monday to show their support for Cuban protesters. Miami Mayor Francis Suarez called on the United States and the international community to help.
The United States and the international community must do something now. And the people of Cuba are starving. They're in need of medicine. They're in need of international help.
The protests that swept across Cuba Sunday were the largest in decades. Mayor Suarez, whose father was the first Cuban-born mayor of Miami, says Cuba's communist regime sponsors terrorism and traffics drugs.
And it's a country that has exported communism throughout the world. It is the head of the poisonous snake, and that has to end, not just for the freedom of the Cuban people, but for the freedom of this hemisphere and for the national security of our country.
On Monday, President Biden said the United States stands firmly with the people of Cuba.
We call on the government of Cuba to refrain from violence or attempts to silence the voice of the people of Cuba.
Police have forcibly arrested scores of people, large contingents now patrolling the capital of Havana. And residents say the internet's down.
I think there's no internet, so people can't see what has happened in the country.
Internet monitoring firm NetBlocks said Cuban authorities were blocking Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, and Telegram Monday. The protests over the weekend stunned Cuba's regime. Communist officials blaming the unrest on the United States and former President Trump's trade blockade. But Senator Marco Rubio says Cuba's failed system is to blame.
And so what's happened in Cuba is socialism has failed. It has to repress the people who complain about it. You don't get your freedom back. And like socialists always do, they have to find someone to blame.
Rubio says the first lesson we need to take away from the protests is that Marxism doesn't work. Jessica Beatty, NTD News.
Texas Democrats have fled the state to block a Republican bill that overhauls elections. The governor, Greg Abbott, says when they return to the state, they will be arrested for disrupting the legislative process. The Texas Democrat walkout on Monday aims to deny the state legislature quorum. That way, the majority GOP won't be able to pass voting reform.
We're here today because our backs have been against the wall. We had no other option. There was nothing left to give. And so we took a stand and we left the state of Texas.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott called a special session to pass an election overhaul bill. Republicans say it's necessary to prevent irregularities and fraud, but Democrats say it amounts to voter suppression.
We have fought too long and too hard in this country to get away from having to count beans in a bag.
Abbott says the Democrats' decision is inflicting harm on the Texans who elected them, and he says they will be arrested when they return. He claims other members of the House can call for the Democrats who ditched the vote to be arrested. A state representative who's been there for 6 sessions says hundreds of bills that address fraud, ballot harvesting, and absentee voting are filed every session.
So these bills are filed every session on these issues, and I really don't see any difference in what we're doing this session.
Abbott told Fox News the measure makes it easier to vote by adding more hours of early voting, but he says it makes it harder to cheat using mail-in ballots. A U.S. Senator from Texas, John Cornyn, comments on the Democrats' walkout.
Well, I would say it's a very un-Texan thing to do, to cut and run in the face of a fight And obviously they're not going to be successful. We're simply not going to vote to turn over our elections to the federal government.
In the walkout, some of the Texas Democrats took chartered flights to Washington to urge moderate Democrats to oppose the filibuster. That's so Democrats at the federal level can pursue their election agenda without Republican support. Amid the standoff, President Biden is set to deliver a major voting rights speech in Philadelphia Tuesday. The White House says he'll make the moral case for voting rights and is likely to echo his press secretary's language, calling voting restrictions authoritarian and anti-American. Toyota's Political Action Committee announced that they will no longer contribute to Republicans who voted against certifying the 2022 presidential election. This comes after the anti-Trump Lincoln Project ran an ad slamming Toyota for contributing to those lawmakers. Toyota's PAC emailed a statement saying they've listened to their stakeholders and decided to stop the contributions. The Epoch Times asked Toyota if they were concerned about pushback from Trump voters. They replied that they had no further comment. The Lincoln Project is made up of current and former Republicans who campaigned against former President Trump in the 2020 election. They released a statement saying Toyota is only the first in a series of companies they will be targeting with similar ads. The nonprofit government watchdog group Judicial Watch is suing the U.S. Postal Service for records. Judicial Watch wants all documents on what is known as the Internet Covert Operations Program. The program is allegedly used to track and collect the social media posts of Americans. NTD's Don Ma has the story.
Judicial Watch filed a lawsuit in federal court demanding that the U.S. Postal Service turn over records from a previous Freedom of Information Act request. Earlier this year, Yahoo News reported that the Postal Service was monitoring American social media posts as part of a covert program. A group of Republicans wrote to the U.S. Postmaster asking for clarification about the program. Their letter says the monitoring focused on right-leaning social media and that any inflammatory posts should be shared across government agencies. They say the program is troubling and it's unclear why the USPS, of all government agencies and the only one devoted to the delivery of American mail, is taking on the role of intelligence collection. The Postmaster General privately briefed members of Congress about the program. Judicial Watch is after a variety of records about the program, including where the Postal Service got the authority to track American social media posts and how the agency decided which posts to flag. Their lawsuit is filed with the U.S. District Court for Washington, D.C. Don Ma, NTD News.
Earlier, I spoke with one of Wikipedia's co-founders, Larry Sanger, who says the site has lost its neutral point of view and that it's become biased. For example, he points to the site's article on former President Obama. It completely leaves out the Benghazi scandal, where he repeatedly refused to beef up security before the attack on the diplomatic compound in Libya. Sanger notes that Trump's article gives about the same amount of words to his presidency as it does to investigations and impeachments. Unfortunately, Sanger doesn't think anything can be done about Wikipedia and says it's a lost cause. He explains how this all happened.
It's complicated. Basically, Wikipedia has become a kind of an echo chamber. It has been, in my opinion, targeted by the left, and it's possible to do this because it is possible to rise up in the ranks anonymously without telling who you are. So there are people who are administrators on Wikipedia who, well, we don't know who they are at all. And others, well, maybe you can find anyway. But the point is, it's possible for people with hidden agendas to descend and learn how to play the game. And basically, clearly, people with some very deep pockets have gone in and wrested control of the thing.
Now, Larry, you said on your website, in short, and with few exceptions, only globalist, progressive, mainstream sources and sources friendly to globalist progressivism are permitted. How can we make sense of this?
Yeah, well, believe it or not, it's true. Fox News, for example, certainly this channel wouldn't be able to be used as a source. And any sort of new conservative media, the Daily Mail is not allowed. Newsweek even is something that you're supposed to use only in strict circumstances. So the idea is anything that has that is open to a point of view or points of view that are critical of the establishment, those are the ones that are going to be blocked. And there's a few different pages, in fact, that sort of document these decisions that have been made. Why? Well, I mean, I think it's fairly clear. I think that there is the people who have put the most time and money into wresting control of Wikipedia and learning how to play the Wikipedia game, they tend to be on the establishment left, and they're going to push it as far as they can in the direction that as far as they can.
The White House is working with Senate Democrats on a multi-trillion-dollar spending package. The plan would significantly expand and reshape federal spending. NTD's Colin Fredrickson has the story.
Senator Bernie Sanders met with President Joe Biden to talk about an infrastructure bill Monday. Democrats are putting together their own bill in addition to the bipartisan one that's being negotiated in the Senate. That bill includes the Democrats' social spending priorities. Sanders is chairman of the Senate Budget Committee. He says the bill is a way for the government to help working families.
And we want to see a reconciliation bill which shows the working families of this country the government can and must work for them.
Democrats are negotiating a bill among themselves now that Senator Joe Manchin says he supports a bill that leaves out Republicans. Sanders initially proposed a $6 trillion package. Biden's proposal comes in at $3.5 trillion. Manchin or any moderate Democrat can reduce the size of the bill if they don't support it. Every Democrat will have to vote for it to get it through the evenly divided Senate. Republicans say the additional spending is not on infrastructure, but social programs and Green New Deal proposals. The Democrats' plan is expected to include tax increases, spending on climate change, education, caregiving, and other social programs. Dave Ditch is a policy analyst on the federal budget for the Heritage Foundation. He says the Biden administration is promoting its American Jobs Plan as an infrastructure proposal. In reality, it's a gargantuan tax and spend package that would expand federal power and control in a wide variety of areas. He says the plan won't create jobs because it will simply move private construction jobs to the public sector, where projects are more expensive. Sanders says they are trying to accomplish something very significant, and he hopes to pass the bill as soon as possible. Initial votes on the package are expected later this month. Colin Fredrickson, NTD News.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel will meet with U.S. President Joe Biden this week. They hope to reach agreement on a range of issues, including a dispute over a gas pipeline to Russia. Here's more.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel will soon head to Washington. But before meeting with President Biden, she attended a news conference with Ukraine's president on Monday. There, she offered a guarantee for Ukraine, saying its status as a transit country for Russian gas would remain intact, even after the Nord Stream 2 pipeline has opened.
We, as the European Union and Germany, will also enforce this for the future, as we're now doing until 2024. I believe that we're not without power in this regard, and we have promised this to Ukraine, and we will stick to that.
The Nord Stream 2 is a natural gas pipeline system running under the ocean directly from Russia to Germany. Washington has argued that the pipeline endangers Europe's energy security and harms allies like Ukraine. The country is currently profiting from the transit fees. Merkel said she would discuss the issue with Biden at the White House meeting Thursday, but she doubts an agreement will be reached. Biden has expressed hope to ally with Germany on issues like climate change, economic recovery, and relations with Iran and China.
We have a lot of responsibility, a lot of tasks. These are foreign policy, geostrategic, geopolitical tasks, but also very concrete ones when it comes to fighting the virus globally and joining forces.
Merkel, now in her fourth term, will step down after Germany's national elections in September.
The Washington Monument is reopening Wednesday. It's been closed since January because of the pandemic. Masks will still be required for all visitors, regardless of vaccination status. And another change, visitors can only purchase tickets online from recreation.gov. No tickets are sold on site anymore. The monument honoring America's first president initially closed in March of 2020 due to lockdown restrictions. It reopened in October of last year, only to be shut down again due to another wave of virus cases in January. National park officials are hoping this time it will stay open for good. A link between a rare neurological complications and Johnson & Johnson vaccine is now being investigated by federal health officials.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration issued a warning for Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccine, saying data suggests an increased risk of a rare autoimmune disorder called Guillain-Barré. Also known as GBS, the syndrome is a rare neurological condition in which the body's immune system attacks the protective coating on nerve fibers. Most people fully recover. In a Monday letter to the company, the FDA said the chances of getting GBS was, quote, very low, but still warned that recipients of the J&J vaccine should seek medical attention if they show symptoms within 6 weeks of inoculation, including weakness, tingling sensations, difficulty walking, or difficulty with facial movements. Most cases were in men over the age of 50. Nearly 13 million people have received J&J's one-dose vaccine in the U.S. Out of 100 preliminary reports of GBS, the FDA says 95 cases have required hospitalization, and 1 death has been reported. The warning is another setback for the J&J shot, as its one-dose system was supposed to help vaccinate hard-to-reach areas. Last week, European regulators issued a similar warning for AstraZeneca's vaccine, which uses technology like J&J's, a traditional virus-based approach. Meanwhile, the FDA has not linked GBS to the mRNA vaccines, Pfizer-BioNTech and Moderna.
The U.S. general leading the war in Afghanistan officially relinquished his command and quietly left the country. It's a symbolic end to America's longest conflict.
We can all see the violence that's taking place across the country, but we know that with that violence, that what is very difficult to achieve is a political settlement. So again, what I tell the Taliban is they're responsible too.
Miller is America's last 4-star commander to serve on the ground in Afghanistan. Addressing a small crowd of U.S. and Afghan officials, Miller vowed to remember lives lost in the fighting and called on the Taliban to halt attacks that have given them control of more territory than at any time since the conflict began. Miller climbed aboard a helicopter and lifted off from the military base in Kabul that was the nerve center for the 2-decade-old war effort. One of the Haitian-American men arrested on suspicion of taking part in the assassination of Haiti's president last week had been an informant to the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, a DEA official said Monday.
A new U.S. connection emerged Monday in the investigation into the killing of Haitian President Jovenel Moïse. A source with the Drug Enforcement Agency revealed that one of the suspects in the case, a Haitian-American man, had been a DEA informant. But a source in law enforcement said the man was not active as an informant at the time Moïse was gunned down in his home last Wednesday. The suspect is one of 2 Haitian-American men arrested last week. Police have also arrested a group of Colombian mercenaries and a Haitian man that police say was the mastermind of the plot. Washington has sent a team of experts to investigate Moïse's murder with a focus on any connection to the United States. Moïse's killing has plunged poverty-stricken Haiti into turmoil. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Monday expressed concern for the situation on the ground.
We urge the country's political leaders to bring the country together around a more inclusive, peaceful, and secure vision and pave the road toward free and fair elections this year.
Public anger erupted outside a courthouse in Port-au-Prince Monday. 2 former lawmakers who had been critical of the president were brought in for questioning. The lawyer for one said the senators were anxious to cooperate.
The prosecutor wants to hear from us. The most important thing for the senators is justice for Jovenel Moïse, because they also want to know where this crime originated.
Neither of the senators have been charged.
Up next, New York City still has a few months to go to the next mayoral election, but one candidate says it's unfair that some act like the race has already been decided. And a heat wave forces baby hawks in Oregon to flee their nests in June. A local wildlife rehabilitation center is taking care of the survivors and helping prepare them for the wild. Find out more here on NTD News. A New York judge was sympathetic to horse trainer Bob Baffert's claims that his May suspension was unfair after Kentucky Derby winner Medina Spirit failed a post-race drug test.
It looked like the judge was sympathetic to the argument, that's for sure, right? I mean, understanding.
The judge repeatedly pressed a lawyer for the Racing Association to explain why the suspension was issued before Baffert was given a chance to defend himself. A lawyer for the Racing Association said Baffert will get a hearing by August 11th, but the judge noted that that would be months after he was suspended. Baffert publicly acknowledged that Medina Spirit tested positive for a banned substance, but said in his lawsuit that he was suspended without any prior notice and without being told the duration or terms of the suspension. Baffert cannot enter any horses in the Kentucky Derby or other races at the Churchill Downs track through the spring of 2023. New York City is going to vote for a new mayor in a few months. Some seem to be sure that the Democratic nominee is going to win the race, but the Republican nominee reminds people the outcome hasn't been decided yet. NTD's Arian Pastar has the story.
3 died and 7 have been left injured after multiple shootings in New York City on Sunday. Now on Monday, Democratic candidate for the mayoral race, Eric Adams, has met with President Biden to address the gun problem in New York City. But his opponent, Curtis Sliwa, wasn't invited to that meeting, and he says that isn't right.
Blasio is not in Washington, D.C., who is our mayor. At least I don't believe he is. Governor Cuomo, our governor, is not in Washington, D.C. I don't believe he is.
Sliwa says he should have been invited to D.C. too, because of his personal experience with shootings.
Because I'm the only mayoral candidate who was shot 5 times with hollow point bullets by members of the Gambino crime family. Secondarily, I went through the federal court system 4 separate trials in which there was great discussion about the actual weapon that was used, the .38 Special.
He blamed media outlets for ignoring the fact that the mayoral elections didn't even take place yet.
If you read the headlines, he's already the mayor. This is a democratic process. There's still an election that will determine the next mayor of the city of New York.
He added that Adams, who is a former NYPD captain, does have the experience to talk about gun violence. But Sliwa also wanted to be part of that conversation. Sliwa says he would bring gun violence down by refunding the police and reversing bail reform, which took effect in New York City last year. Arian Pastar, NTD News, New York.
Caught on camera, a fuel tanker carrying more than 14,000 gallons of gasoline and diesel fuel slowly veers into a highway median in Troy, Michigan, flips on its side, and bursts into flames. The driver escaped the accident with only minor injuries. The wreckage burned for more than 2 hours. Several miles of I-75 were shut down as firefighters worked to contain the fire. They eventually put it out with foam. The northbound and southbound lanes of a section of the interstate were closed as the Michigan Department of Transportation investigated damage to the roadway. No other vehicles were involved in Monday afternoon's crash, but nobody else was hurt. Check out this massive, overgrown goldfish found in a Minnesota lake. The city of Burnsville tweeted these shocking photos on Friday as a warning to anyone thinking of dumping unwanted goldfish in a lake, stream, or pond. According to the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, goldfish are not allowed to be released in public waters. The main reason is they can rapidly reproduce, causing a headache when they need to be removed. The city also tweeting that they can grow bigger than you think and contribute to poor water quality. The DNR recommends finding another owner or reaching out to a veterinarian or pet retailer for proper disposal. A June heat wave in Oregon forced a number of baby hawks out of their nests. Now, a local animal rehabilitation center is preparing the survivors to re-enter the wild. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports.
More than 100 baby birds have fled their nests in Pendleton, Oregon. A record-breaking heat wave in late June sent them looking for shade and water.
We had over 100 come in like 3 days, just because of the heat, and they were too young to be out of the nest, so they mostly were downy babies, so had no ability to get back up.
Blue Mountain Wildlife Rehabilitation Center was flooded with calls from concerned citizens. Tompkins said about 3/4 of the birds are doing fine, but some of them suffered multiple fractures from falling more than 50 feet to the ground. Unfortunately, about 13 birds had to be euthanized.
This situation was totally unprecedented. Yeah, in more than 30 years of doing rehab, we have never had anything even close to this happen. But I can't remember having temperatures of 115, several days in a row either.
Tompkins asked for people in the community to put out water and turn on their sprinklers for the baby birds going forward.
Almost all of them, the parents were still there, and we really hate to take baby of any kind away from their parents because they're, the most qualified to take care of them.
More than 50 Swansons and Cooper's hawks are being returned to the wild through a method called hacking. That means the center replicates what the birds' parents would do, so the birds can reach their full hunting potential. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Still to come, California Governor Gavin Newsom won't be identified as a Democrat on the state's recall ballots. That's because Newsom's staff failed to designate his Democratic Party affiliation ahead of September's recall election. And Elon Musk gives an animated testimony at the start of a 2-week trial on Tesla's SolarCity acquisition. All that and more in just a moment.
Hi folks, Joe Namath here, and if you're on Medicare, this is important. You're now entitled to eliminate copays and get dental care, dentures, eyeglasses, prescription coverage, in-home aids, unlimited transportation, and home-delivered meals, all at no additional cost. Plus, your zip code may have coverage with the Give Back benefit that adds money back to your Social Security check every month.
I called to get dental, transportation, meals, and the Give Back benefit.
With this virus situation, I called to get everything I'm entitled to. I couldn't believe I was missing out on so many benefits.
With the uncertainty of the virus, you need to get everything you're entitled to. Millions of people have trusted the Medicare Coverage Helpline. You can too. Call now. It's free.
Call 1-800-764-1930. That's 1-800-764-1930 now.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm gonna pass the savings directly on to you. Go to MyPillow.com right now to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. For example, you can get my premium MyPillows, regularly $69.98, now just $29.98, the lowest price ever.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
A California judge has denied Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom's request to have his party affiliation listed on the state's upcoming recall election ballot. Newsom had sued his own Secretary of State last month to be listed as a Democrat on the ballot. It came after the governor said his election attorney accidentally left off his party affiliation in a filing last year. The lawsuit says Newsom filed a new notice with the Secretary of State's office correcting the mistake, but was denied. A spokesman for the Secretary of State said accepting a filing after a deadline would require a judicial resolution. A Sacramento Superior Court judge wrote in his ruling Monday that the circumstances do not justify excuse from the deadline. The recall election is set for September 14th. A draft petition to recall a socialist Los Angeles councilwoman gains approval. Recall organizers accuse her of enabling crime and supporting homeless encampments. Organizers say homeless encampments have expanded exponentially in Councilwoman Nithya Raman's district since she took office. They also accuse her of working to cut police funding. In an interview last year with a Socialist magazine, Raman said that she is a Democrat and a member of the Democratic Socialists of America, and that her entire platform basically overlaps with the efforts of the Democratic Socialists of America in Los Angeles. The recall petition must garner signatures from 15% of registered voters in the district Raman represents. In a previous statement to news outlets, Raman said she wants organizers of the recall to work with her to approve the district. Elon Musk was animated in a court appearance at the start of a 2-week trial. The Tesla CEO faces a lawsuit over his company's acquisition of solar panel maker SolarCity. Musk testified that Tesla's board controls the company, but that the electric vehicle maker would die if he wasn't the chief executive. The lawsuit by union pension funds and asset managers alleges the celebrity CEO strong-armed Tesla's board of directors into the SolarCity deal. Musk called the lawyer for the shareholders a bad human being. The lawyer was urging Musk to see wrongdoing in his involvement with the deal. SolarCity was funded by Musk and 2 of his cousins. The acquisition was not profitable for Tesla. Musk was greeted by fans as he left the Delaware court and was driven off in a Tesla vehicle. Microsoft is picking up a tool it hopes will help in the fight against hacking. The software giant says it will buy RiskIQ, a cybersecurity firm. Officials with Microsoft say this purchase will protect customers from risks that arise as more people are working remotely and using cloud services. RiskIQ has software that will allow companies to keep a close watch on all of their networks, including those that run on cloud providers. This deal comes when a number of organizations have been affected by ransomware attacks. Microsoft did not disclose how much it paid to acquire RiskIQ, but according to Bloomberg, the deal was at least $500 million. It's sunflower season in California. Despite excessive heat warnings, people are still out picking their own bouquets. Here's NTD's Eileen Ng with more in the field, literally.
Here at Dutch Hollow Farms, sunflowers are in season. Visitors can come visit the farm and pick their own and learn a few things about the flowers.
We have single stem varieties, and then we have branching types.
John Boss, owner of Dutch Hollow Farms, says it's their 3rd year growing sunflowers. There are over 35 different colors on the 5 acres.
There's so many different varieties of sunflowers that people just didn't even realize, because you're used to going to the store and you get your bunch of sunflowers and they're pretty much the same color every time, right? And this is what's great about the farm is there's so many different colors. Everybody can show their uniqueness and pick what they want.
Despite the 100-degree weather, visitors still enjoy their time with family and friends. So what did you guys pick today?
I don't know. We got this yellow one, and then I've never really seen a red one, and then this almost like white or pale yellow, yeah.
You know, it's just beautiful to spend some time, away from home, especially after this quarantine and everything,
He brought his family to the farm. His daughter loves the flowers.
Is this your favorite one?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's so beautiful.
Aww. Okay. Will you come back?
Yeah.
They're just so beautiful. You don't know which ones to pick from.
And how did you decide? What catches your eye?
Just the different colors, and the different heights, and thinking how you can arrange them at home, yeah.
Boss recommends leaving the stem long and picking the sunflowers when they aren't in full bloom.
If you just see them just partially open, that's the best time to pick them for longevity in the vase, because they will open up at home. As long as they got partially open, you're good to go.
He also suggests bringing a bucket with water to keep the sunflowers from wilting. His flowers are the pollenless varieties. After the season is over, he will replace them with corn for the corn maze in the fall. Eileen Ng, NTD News, California.
Just ahead, the Taliban is calling China a friend. The terrorist group is seeking to hold talks with Beijing and welcoming Chinese investments in Afghanistan. China's capital city stands still as heavy rainfall hit Beijing on Sunday. Downpours caused floods, canceled flights, and suspended classes. Stay tuned for more. The Taliban says it sees China as its friend and hopes to talk with Beijing as soon as possible. While U.S. troops are pulling out of Afghanistan, the Taliban is inviting Beijing for reconstructions and investments and guarantees to ensure its safety.
The Taliban says it sees China as a friend and promises Chinese investments in Afghanistan are secure. Media reports say the Taliban is now hoping for talks with Beijing. A Taliban spokesperson said they had been to China many times and have good relations with them, calling China a friendly country and welcoming it for reconstruction and developing Afghanistan. The United Nations has condemned the Taliban for supporting terrorism and providing weapons used to train terrorists. The Taliban's remarks come amid a withdrawal of U.S. troops. American forces have fought in Afghanistan for 20 years. President Biden pledged to withdraw all U.S. troops by September 11th of this year.
I've concluded that it's time to end America's longest war. It's time for American troops to come home.
But China seems to have something to say about the plan. China's foreign ministry posted a related notice late last month. It urged Chinese citizens to leave Afghanistan as soon as possible due to what is called severe and complex security concerns. China already evacuated more than 200 of its nationals from Afghanistan by charter flight this week. But as the situation in Afghanistan changes, so has Beijing's rhetoric. For years, China has blamed the U.S. for what it considers interfering in internal affairs. But early this month, China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi started accusing the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan of being irresponsible. He says Americans are walking away from the region. Days later, in a press conference, China's Foreign Ministry spokesman reiterated the blame, saying the withdrawal amounts to hypocrisy.
Hundreds of flights canceled and over 10,000 people relocated. A major rainstorm is hitting Beijing, and authorities are issuing a stay-at-home order. NTD's Tiffany Meyer brings us more on the story.
The entire city of Beijing has come to a standstill. Hundreds of flights were canceled and schools were shut as the city faced the biggest storm of the year on Sunday. Around 15,000 people were evacuated from their homes. Downpours along with strong winds caused floods, halted public bus lines, and forced tour sites to close. Beijing authorities have issued a stay-at-home order for everyone on Monday, and they asked companies to let employees work from home. Heavy rains also caused trouble in other Chinese cities. Videos circulating online show floodwater sweeping away people and cars in a city of 9 million. It's in Hebei province, which borders Beijing. The flood has submerged parts of the city, blocking roads and sewage pipes. More extreme weather conditions are expected in the coming days. On Monday, Chinese authorities issued a yellow warning for strong rainfall across the country. That's the third highest in their 4-level warning system. Authorities in Beijing said accumulated rainfall since Sunday is expected to reach 2.3 to 4 inches on average. That's about 1/6 of the city's annual rainfall. And in southwestern China's Sichuan province, heavy rains drenched many areas over the weekend. More than a dozen rivers exceeded the flood warning level. Over 700,000 people have suffered from the flood, with a direct economic loss of over $330 million. That's according to Chinese state-run media. NTD cannot independently verify these figures. Online videos show the floodwater overflowing a dam, forming a waterfall over 30 feet. About a dozen ships were engulfed by the running water and got swept downstream. Some witnesses said the ships were crushed into pieces instantly. After the river overflowed the banks, it soaked the first floors of some nearby buildings. Residents are spotted paddling on boats on the streets. Cars parked by the curbs are also floating like boats. On Sunday, 80% of a local town was submerged in water. Some buildings there had as many as 2 floors soaked in water. 8,000 people had to be evacuated.
Lithuania is bolstering its ties with Taiwan and distancing itself from Communist China. The Baltic nation has recently announced plans to open an office in Taiwan and to quit a forum led by China.
Lithuania, an EU member state bordering Russia, seems to be growing more skeptical of Beijing and more sympathetic to Taiwan and Hong Kong. Earlier this month, Lithuania announced plans to open a trade representation office in Taiwan this year. The move angered Beijing, which claims the democratic island as its territory, despite having never ruled it. Few countries have official embassies in Taiwan. Instead, several EU countries host representative and trade offices on the island. The Chinese Foreign Ministry responded to the move, saying they firmly oppose all forms of official agencies in Taiwan. Meanwhile, Taiwan is thanking Lithuania for its support. There has been a surge in goodwill between the two sides. Lithuania has sent to Taiwan 20,000 doses of CCP virus vaccines, and Taiwan returned the favor with donations. Taiwan also gave Lithuania 100,000 surgical face masks last year. In a separate move, Lithuania also quit a multilateral forum led by China. The so-called 17+1 group took shape in 2012 to deepen China's ties with Eastern Europe. But the program has fueled concerns in Western Europe. Many fear Beijing is seeking to divide the continent. Lithuania has asked other EU members to follow and step out of the pact as well. And the country has done more than that. It has also designated the Chinese regime's abuses against Uyghurs as genocide. Beijing dismisses the claims as outright lies. In regard to Hong Kong, Lithuania may offer more opportunities for people there thinking about leaving. That's as many Hong Kong residents face increasing political pressure due to Beijing's sweeping national security law. Hong Kong media Stand News reported that Lithuania is considering offering simplified immigration procedures for Hong Kong residents. It may happen in the near future. Beijing doesn't seem to be happy about Lithuania's recent moves. Chinese state-owned media Global Times is saying as such a small country, Lithuania is inviting big trouble.
Next up, Team USA Basketball takes part in a pre-Olympics tournament in Las Vegas. Basketball's finest players are preparing for the Tokyo Summer Olympics. And an Olympic spectator's dreams are shattered after Tokyo's announcement that the games will go on without fans. All that and more here on NTD News.
If you're like most of us, you're probably getting fed up with the nonsense that's going on in the banking system. Did you know that top U.S. banks have recently amended their depositor terms and conditions to include the words bank failure and what's required of you in 24 hours if, or should I say when, it happens? Don't get blindsided by your bank. Call GSI Exchange today to pick up your complimentary copy of the Bank Failure Survival Guide at 866-424-2382. We'll also send you the required format to file with your bank within 24 hours of their failure, which is now required by the top banks to avoid freezing of your funds. Yes, the top banks can now freeze your money. The world is in a strange place, and banks are constantly changing the rules. So stay on top of the current events that really matter by calling GSI Exchange and requesting your free guide at 866-424-2382.
With Shepherd Lock, you can unlock your door by touching the deadbolt. Shepherd also boosts your home's security by proactively freezing in place if anyone ever tries to tamper with your lock or break down your door. We also make it easy to manage keys without hiding them under the mat. Easily create temporary keys for house guests, neighbors, or anyone else. Installation takes less than 5 minutes. Visit shepherdlock.com to buy your Shepherd Lock today, and for a limited time, enjoy 10% off.
Peace comes from within. I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life. The human body is the temple of God, and religion is the experience of God within yourself. Are you ready to discover the truth within yourself? Book an appointment now at divinelight.com.
The USA men's national basketball team is preparing for the Olympic Games in Tokyo. The team spent the last week in Las Vegas playing other national teams in a mini-tournament. NTD's Arian Pastar has the story.
The Argentinian team was also in Las Vegas. Back in Athens in 2004, Argentina shockingly beat the American team in the semifinals. That was the only time the US basketball team didn't win a gold medal since the Olympics allowed NBA players to be part of the team in 1992.
Obviously, everyone always wants to beat USA, and we understand that.
Jason Tatum of the Boston Celtics will be playing for the Olympic squad for the first time.
Obviously, it's going to look a little different, but it's an event that I've watched all my life and dreamed about.
Kevin Durant and Draymond Green will lead the USA. Green has been playing with the national team for a decade now. The Summer Games only take place every 4 years.
I'm extremely excited to be here. It's like every time I've played with Team USA, in my mind, I'm like, man, that's my last opportunity.
Star players LeBron James and Anthony Davis won't be part of the Olympic Games. They'll spend the summer getting healthy for the upcoming NBA season. But even without them, Team USA is the clear favorite. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
The defending Olympic marathon champion and world record holder is 36 years old now. but he's still confident he can win another gold in Tokyo. Here's more.
Eliud Kipchoge from Kenya is the first person to run a marathon in under 2 hours in an unofficial race.
Sapporo, actually, if I win a gold medal, this will be the highest ever because it's my second gold medal.
He reminded his rivals what they will be up against in Japan. This year's games will be different, he acknowledged, as they have been delayed a year due to the pandemic and will go ahead without spectators. He accepts the IOC's decision to not allow fans.
As I always say, marathon is life. Then we all need to take care of the lives of the many people.
He says he's still excited about running and sees the games as a way to give hope to people who have had to endure a tough year.
My participation personally, our participation actually as a Kenyan team, and the participation for all the countries who are going to participate in Tokyo Olympic Games is a sign of hope to the whole world.
He added that the games are a sign that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Asked whether the race in Japan would be his last, he said he was only focusing on winning for now. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
Kazunori Takashima's Olympic dream of setting a world record, a plan that had cost him almost $40,000, ended when organizers said spectators would be banned for most of the game's events.
If you think you've had a bad week, spare a thought for Kazunori Takashima. His Olympic dream of setting a world record for attending the most Olympic events ever was shattered when organisers said spectators would be banned for most of the Games events. Nearly $40,000 later, Takashima had bought 100 Tokyo 2020 tickets after saving and scheming for years.
Frankly, I'm angry. Obviously, I'm angry with the fact that I can't go to the venues to watch the games. But my biggest frustration is why they waited until the last minute.
The 45-year-old said that for most of his life, he had no interest in sports. But it was a chance visit to a skating competition that prompted him to attend the 2006 Winter Games, where he saw Japanese figure skater Shizuka Arakawa take gold. He has attended every summer and winter games since then.
There are athletes that win a gold medal and other medals, and athletes who can't despite their immense efforts. The athletes who show their tears at these venues are giving authentic moments. When I see that, it makes me want to work harder at my job or be more motivated or enjoy my life more.
Before Tokyo 2020, Takashima had attended 106 ticketed Olympic competitions and had planned to see 28 events over the 17 days of the Games. The Guinness World Record stands at 128. He's considering watching the opening ceremony on his phone outside the National Stadium. Slowly scrolling through dozens of digital tickets on his phone, he said, "Just looking at these makes me want to cry."
Coming up, an eye-opening art exhibit that's being held in Atlanta. Amidst ongoing persecution by the Chinese Communist Party, the artists show truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance in their works. Stay tuned to find out more. An art exhibition showcasing the principles of truth, compassion, and tolerance is returning to Atlanta. The artists practice a peaceful spiritual discipline that's been undergoing brutal persecution in China for 22 years.
Battles between good and evil and depictions of the divine are on display in Atlanta. The art exhibit is named Zhen Shan Ren, or Truthfulness, Compassion, and Forbearance, principles taught by the spiritual practice Falun Gong. In China, the peaceful Buddhist school practice has been brutally persecuted by the communist government since 1999. Countless practitioners continue to be imprisoned and tortured. Some are even victims of forced organ harvesting.
I just find the art extraordinary, though. It just some of it's a little hard to look at because the message is very serious. You know, it's shocking. You know, I don't think any of us realize the scope, and we need to. And obviously, you know, our voices need to be heard. It obviously needs to stop. So.
The exhibit opened on July 8th in Atlanta's Sloppy Floyd building. Both Republican and Democratic political figures attended the ceremony.
This exhibition is just so truly powerful and raw, and everyone needs to see it because the world needs to know about the persecution that's going on by the Chinese Communist Party.
This is human rights abuse. It powerfully affects each of us. If we say nothing, It says who we are as people.
Many speakers believe that the exhibition should serve as a wake-up call for America.
Viewing these photographs of torture and amputations and terrible things that are being done in the name of the government is a very loud alert and should be a red flag to those of us who live in this country.
People thought that it was one of those conspiracies, that wasn't surely happening in this day and age, but they need to see the art and understand through this wonderful exhibit that it's real and it is in the world and that America is the last stand for religious freedom. And if they think that it can't happen here, they're deceiving themselves.
The Zhen Shanren art exhibit has been on display in over 900 cities in 50 countries around the world. This is the fourth time that Atlanta has hosted the exhibition. The artwork will be on display until July 22nd.
Let's turn to wellness now. Are constant smartphone notifications distracting you from what is truly meaningful in life? We have some tips on how to switch off.
Welcome to Strong Mind and Body. I'm Gina Marie. So much of our day can be filled with an avalanche of distractions from our devices, and often we don't even think about it. In the moment, they may seem so important and satisfying, but what if they are keeping us from focusing on what's truly important? What if we could filter out all that noise and focus on what's really meaningful? What if we could find stillness instead of constant distraction? I believe that most of us have that power. Most of the noise is there by choice. But of course, we've fallen into patterns over the years, and it seems like we don't have the power to change them. Let's talk about ways to filter out the unnecessary noise. Take the rest of the day to notice what noise you find in your life. Make a list of moments when you found yourself distracted. For example, noise in life can come from email, WhatsApp, Snapchat, Twitter, text messages, Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, and news. Once we are aware of the noise, how can we filter it out? First, we have to decide that our desire for more quiet and meaning in our lives is great enough for us to miss out on some of those noisy channels. Then we can take action. How so? Start by turning off app notifications. Unsubscribe to notifications from Twitter or any other apps that you are following, whether it be people, blogs, or websites. If you use an RSS reader, unsubscribe from as many feeds as possible. Unsubscribe from email lists and notifications that you don't read and only glance at. Decide to check on some communication channels like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram just once a day. Delete apps or accounts that aren't giving you real meaning in life. Tell people that you're only checking your messages once a day to set the expectation. Set a time each day when you watch TV or movies. Set a time of the day when you read news or blogs. If there are some communications such as email or text messages that you need to stay connected to for work, try to negotiate with your boss to have periods of time when you can disconnect. If you take these actions, you'll filter out most of the noise. What's left? Time for quiet, stillness, focus, and meaning.
Thanks for watching. My team and I are honored to be your source for the news. In New York City, I'm Kevin Hogan.
we have a new channel. Subscribe to us on YouTube at NTD News. Get the highlights of our news broadcast and the most important headlines that we curate especially for you.
Don't let YouTube decide what information you get. That's your choice. YouTube is deleting our videos and cuts you off from a source of honest reporting. Make sure you don't lose access to NTD's news content, and take a quick moment to subscribe to our newsletter so no matter what happens here, you'll keep your access to a trustworthy news source.